Okay, so now I'm going to go to styling a label widget and I'm going to copy this style dictionary and go over to the script and I'm actually going to paste this on top. Um, and I'm going to define this dictionary of style before I before I initialize the test label. And then what that's going to allow me to do is add the second argument where I can say now the style of this label, I want it to refer to the styles that are defined in that dictionary. And then this is basically it's a dictionary, so I don't want to call it a long list, but it defines the variables that we have to be able to control the appearance of this label down here. And so we can do things like change the color to red, and that's going to make the font color go from black to red. We can change the color of the background, and that's going to change the color of the panel or the kind of the negative space that holds the letters. Um, we can change the height, and it's going to make the box, it's going to affect the box that contains the content. And so this is kind of helpful to go over to the resources and go to the box model and see that when we are working with a label, we have the content, which is the kind of the letters, then we have this idea that there's a box around it. And that box will have some padding in the sense of the space between the content and the box itself. The box can have a border that can have variable thickness, and then the box can have a margin, which is how far it is from other from kind of the container that it sits within. And that's the idea of the box model. And so a lot of the styles that we're going to do are based on the box, where the color is based on the content, but the background color is the color of the box. The height is the height of the box. You can do this in pixels, but you could also do it in percentages if you wanted to basically cover the map with that thing. But I'm going to say pixels right now to kind of just make that there. You can control the width. Similarly, it can be percentages, so that's going to take that whole thing up. Or you can change this to pixels, and um, and now we've got kind of something that's roughly a square, um, and uh, and so forth. The pixels are basically going to be fixed. So 200 pixels on your screen is going to be 200 pixels on your phone, whereas the percentages are going to be based on the size of the window that you're displaying things on. So then we can do this based on, I'm going to maybe even make this 400, so we just have a single line to be able to show this. Um, so padding, if I add that, is going to it should affect the spacing between the content and the border of the box. So sometimes it's helpful to kind of go really big to see what these results are. But now I've added 100 pixel padding um, uh, between the box and the content. Margin is going to affect how far from the edge. And so if I say 20 pixels, if I say 200 pixels, I think this is going to push it. Now this doesn't affect it here in the map. Um, it so that's going to come into play later. But we'll just that since that doesn't seem to have an effect, we're going to leave it off for now. Border is just going to kind of the 4 pixels is how thick that line is. Solid orange. I personally don't like. I think orders just add a layer of visual noise to layout, so I try to avoid putting lines around boxes, and I'm going to encourage you guys to not use that border. But there it is. Font size is how big you want the font. Um, and so that's uh, um, that's telling you the size of the lettering measured from the descender to the ascender, but that's kind of cart stuff. The weight, so there's bold versus, and there are different weights that you can add to fonts. what's going to be probably helpful for you here is to refer to um, this style sheets that will tell you the families, but then also a little bit probably about styles. Um, and there's information about weights. Normal is the default versus bold, and then you can also use numbers to kind of go extra heavy or medium and that kind of stuff. Um, and the font family is uh, just going to change it. It may not look, you may not notice a major difference there, but Helvetica is different from the default. You can see it jump a little bit. I think the default is going to be one of these. But if you wanted to go with a slightly different feel, Helvetica is a simple, generic, but safe and usually effective. Um, but if you wanted to go more like kind of tube underground, you could do something like Jill, and then I think you have to say Sans because that's a serifed font there. Let me see, Sans, Jill Sans, sorry. So if you made this Jill Sans, that's going to change it to something that's a little bit more like the Tube Underground type of look. Um, and Optima is another one. But the idea is that you can just change the typeface by doing that. I'm going to go back to Helvetica. Text align, so that's going to be left. That's going to be right. So that's ragged left. Um, that's ragged right, but often the aligns are just how this is aligned, and it creates, I usually refer to left aligned as ragged right because it makes the right side ragged. Text decoration, which I don't necessarily recommend, but you can do underline. You can also do strike through. Um, the white space by default, it's going to be wrap, but if you say pre, it's going to run over, and this is going to allow you to actually define where you want, which we've done in, uh, right, we've done that for legends, but to control whether you want it to wrap automatically or whether you want to control where the line breaks happen, that's what that's for. I'm going to go back to wrap and keep going here. So shown, if you, for some reason, don't want this to be displayed by default, but that usually comes into play when you do interactive. And then there's stretch that is something that probably won't come into play too much, but it's going to come into play more, I think, with the with panels, and in a way but you don't have to worry about it so much. Is that okay? So that's basically the idea, just providing you ways to control the appearance of this thing. And there is maybe something else that you can do is if you want to control the position, um, you can say something like bottom left, and uh, and that's going to now put this box in the bottom left of your map. And then the very last thing is that you could uh, add the third thing, the target URL. And target is lowercase and then U uppercase. This is the snake case, but it looks like that. And then you can add, I don't know, something like this. And so if you add a link to it and hit run, it's now going to go to blue. And if you click on it, it's going to it's now going to be it's like adding a link. So you retain some of your style parameters, you just lose the color. It's going to automatically go to blue if you make it a target URL. But that's a way to kind of help, a simple way of making the app a little bit interactive is just by having some links available for people to access. Is that fair? So that's the intro to labels, and now we're going to go over panels in a second here. I'm just going to save and move on.